What's up, everybody? Welcome to an early morning edition. Well, morning here, afternoon there across the pond. But we
Yeah.
got episode 20 of season 8, and Rob Harris is here. Now, Rob, I looked at this last night. I was watching the first time you were on, and that was like season 2. So that was like 3 years ago, dude. Isn't that
Wow.
weird?
Look what 3 years has done.
Oh man, but it's so good to talk to you. I mean, I know I talked to you a while ago about like maybe wanting to do something like this, but I
Mm.
think so highly of you as a player and like your right hand and like your comping and everything is so
Oh,
great.
bless you.
And I really wanted to talk to you about the importance of rhythm guitar. And I know a lot of guitar players want to like play the leads and do all that stuff,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
there's such kind of a lack of awareness almost about like the importance of really great rhythm playing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about that and pick your brain. But I wanted to start off by asking you, like, what were like the early records that you listened to where you kind of got some of that?
Um, I weirdly I've got an older brother and sister, so they were always playing music around the house. So it was Jackson's, uh, Cool and the Gang. There was a band that I didn't know this until I played with the guy from the band. My sister was a big fan of a band called Haircut 100, which were
Never heard of
real,
that.
really 80s. Like this was 80, 82, 83. And they had a song called Favorite Shirts, right? This was their first single. And the guitar part went like, it was like a, something like that. Really fast 16th funk. And I got to play with that guy once, it all as I was playing with him, it was all coming back to me, hearing my sister playing it all the time. It was just on repeat. She would pick the record, pick the needle up, start it again, pick the needle up, start it again. And I asked the guy, his name is Nick Hayward, and I said, what were your influences like? Were you really into Nile Rodgers and David Williams? He said, "Well, yeah, a little bit, but actually mostly Talking Heads."
Wow.
So it was completely a different place that I thought it was. It was that kind of almost early punk funk thing. I don't know if you listened to the
Mm.
early Talking Heads. David Byrne was quite a funky guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that
So
record, the early records, it's funny because like Talking Heads is like an acquired taste for a lot of people, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And I remember hearing Remain in Light and being like,
hmm,
oh wow, I
yeah,
get it now. But I never
yeah.
would have thought that. That's crazy. So
No,
did you go back and like listen to the
uh,
Talking Head stuff?
subsequently I've heard it and gone, oh, actually that's where the quirkiness comes from. It's not the nice, it's not all the 11th chords and the nice major sevenths. It's all quite angular, slightly off the cake, slightly weird funk, and almost misplaced in some of it. um, and slightly more aggressive, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funk merged with whatever they were sort of picking up at the time. But that's where he got it from. I was like, right. It's not chic. It was just probably why it was so frantic. Very
Mm-hmm.
16y. So, but I grew up with all that stuff. Yeah, I was very lucky to have older siblings that were playing that stuff, and I was hearing it even though I didn't know I was hearing it. So yeah.
Right. So I mean, I'm gathering that you were very impressionable then. I mean, I was the same way with my older brother, him exposing me to music. Um, but did you feel like that music resonated with you the most? Because like there's times I feel like when I go, and I'm sure we all do this, but we go in
Mm.
and out of different genres of music that we're listening to, but we always come back to home base.
Yeah,
So I mean, is that stuff always your
yeah.
home base?
To be honest, it's not stuff that I listened to. I didn't ever go out and buy the records. It was just always on in the house, and then um, I just ended up doing those types of gigs and doing lots and lots of top 40 gigs and lots of those gigs. So you'd be playing rhythm all night. Um, and I think that's where I mean I've always loved that stuff. I always admired those players. Uh, actually thinking about it, Ray Parker Jr. When
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know that that was him on a lot of those tracks. I had no idea, you know. Um, wasn't until later in life I was like, that was Ray Parker Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Um, and then Paul Jackson Jr. as well. They were all called Junior.
Right.
um, uh, Steve Lukather, who I think is a really funky. He's a great rhythmic, funky parts player. Um, yeah, that's what I gravitated to. So you know, I've said this many times. I always, from my second guitar lesson, when I learned what a session musician was, my teacher told me he was late to the lesson because he'd been on a session, and I was like, "What's a session?" And that's probably why I gravitated to be listening to those guys that were playing on all the records.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's what I always wanted to do, and I still want to do. Are there any sessions anyway?
Right. Didn't you say you just got off one today?
Yeah. I'm very fortunate that I work with quite a few producers that keep me busy,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just stuck in my little green room
Right. Now,
these days.
are you the cat that they call when they want, some funky stuff? Or is it that like, Rob is known he's a Swiss Army knife, just bring him in, he'll do whatever.
Uh, Most of the producers know that that's why. To be honest, I do that, but it sounds weird saying it. I do lots of other things as well that aren't
Mm.
based on funk. Most of the stuff I listen to at home is, at home it's Bon Iver, Ray LaMontagne,
Mm.
the Brothers Landreth. Uh, just been listening to Andrew Gold, some early Andrew Gold records, which I love. So I listen to a lot of singer-songwriter stuff at home because I love songs. So um, when I'm relaxing, I don't put on a funk record because I'm most of the time that's what I'm doing when I'm working.
Right.
But
Yeah, yeah.
but I, I'm quite comfortable in my sense of time. I think I've been very fortunate to do a lot of work in that area. So there's nothing like doing a 2.5 hour Jamiroquai show that will get your rhythm chops together because
Right.
it is relentless. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It's all 128 BPM, sixteenths. I mean, the last four songs, some of them songs they're like 15 minutes long, and then
Mm-hmm.
they segue to the next one. You don't really get a break. So all night you're doing that, which means that it does mean that when you get to do a solo at the end, you've forgotten how to stop doing. Your hand just can't stop.
Yeah.
But I think that's it. Just it's like boot camp for funk guitar.
Hey man, that stuff's keeping you young, right? It's like
Yeah,
keeping you active. It's
yeah.
crazy too. It's like, I mean, we don't I even think even the last time you were on, we didn't talk too much about Jamiroquai, and I didn't tell
Mm.
you like my relationship with that band, but I can remember being 16, just getting my license and like having Emergency on Planet Earth on tape,
Yeah,
like, and just like wearing that thing out.
yeah,
Mostly 100% because the first time I heard the bass line to whatever it is, I just can't stop. I was like, what the
yeah, yeah,
hell? Because I was a young
yeah,
musician and very,
yeah,
very impressionable about like, oh, you can do that with a bass? Like you can
yeah,
do that with music?
yeah,
Um, it's everything before that was, I mean, Pearl Jam is my favorite band.
yeah, yeah,
And so like
yeah.
I was jamming out to Soundgarden heavy yesterday, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm all over the place, all over the map with music. But that record in particular, really, I think Jamiroquai and like even like the Spin Doctors is what made me
Yeah,
realize like, oh man, like funky bluesy stuff exists, you know?
yeah.
So, but
I even hear this as funk, right? That feels funky to me.
mm-hmm,
That is There's funk in that. So
mm-hmm,
even like hearing Pearl Jam, I hear kind of funky things
mm-hmm.
in that music too. I don't think you can cross over with all of it. It's just a sense of timing and pulse that is pretty much drums and bass led. So
That is a perfect segue because that was my next question. So like, so I'm sure you played with a ton of amazing rhythm sections throughout your
Yeah.
career so far.
Hmm.
Um, can you think of a moment? Because I've had these moments happen where, you know, when you get on a stage on a bandstand and like you're playing with players that are so good that,
Hmm.
and they're better than you and they bring you up to their level.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first time you experienced that? And who were you
Ye-
playing with?
I used to go down to London. 'Cause I don't live in London, so when I was young and I was trying to break into the scene, they had to have these open mic, not open mic nights, but it would be a jam session type gig. And I'd take my guitar down, and quite often you'd get up on stage, and as you're getting up on stage, the whole band changes. So you're not getting up with the guys you've just watched, and then you wouldn't pick a tune, you just pick a vibe and start playing. You just start grooving. Someone would play something, and you just join in, and then it's all eyes up to see where it's going. And everyone would have a blow. There'd be sax players and percussionists, but I do remember thinking when the section was tight, the bass player and the drummer were really connected. They obviously would know each other or were listening to each other, because that's the important thing. I do remember thinking, I I can join this without having to do very much, and it will still sound good.
Mm.
And that's when I thought, I used to stand there and going, if I play now, is this going to sound better or worse? So
Ah, okay.
I would really try and find where my place would be within that rhythm section. So anytime so there have been loads of occasions where I've got up when it's not been quite right and gone, yeah, this is going to be a struggle, and that takes a lot more listening to do. So the most important thing I tend to do now when I'm working with anyone that I've not worked with before is I'm mostly listening to where they're at, what's the connection between the bass and drums. Um, I'm just going to shut my email down because it's buzzing in my. Sorry,
That's okay.
it's
Hey
driving
man,
me
maybe
up the
it's session
wall.
work. Maybe it's more session work, man. You
No, it won't be. Yeah, you'll make me want to look now. No, it's scam.
So, but yeah,
Um,
you were saying you realize like less is more in a way, and like
yeah,
being able to connect and like hook up because
yeah.
I feel like that's something that I wanted to talk to you about because the way that you sit within a groove, because first of all, Jamiroquai is a big band, but
Mm,
like if you're sitting in a smaller group, for instance, like this is an interesting question, and I thought about it while I was
mm,
washing dishes this morning, even though I wrote down a ton of other questions last night. But if you're comping
yeah.
and you're vamping over just a one chord vamp, right?
Hmm.
How do you, as the support, keep it interesting for the soloist? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you
Yeah.
specifically do that?
Well, if I'm doing over one chord, it might start off as a static. Say it's an E. Let's go for the E minor. I might just sort of like do a little thing just at the end, just to break it. But all the time, I'll be listening to what the horn player is doing, to see if there's any lifts, if the drums are supporting it. To if You can tell when a drummer's not listening to what the soloist is doing, or whether the bass player is doing too many fills and not letting the soloist develop something. So it's giving space for the development of what's going on and not playing all over them. But when they want to lift, when you can tell that they're doing this, you would intensify a little bit more. So it all just comes from listening, I think. Um, so I would just be what I would play would be dependent on what they're playing.
Okay.
If I can connect in with what they're doing, so it might be that they're playing mellow. They're starting off, and the bass and the drums are really cooking. So I don't need to be too syncopated. I can just lay a chord in. Sort of giving that. just keeping just loads of space
Hmm.
and just sort of coming backwards and forwards with little ideas to see if it might inspire them, or if they're doing a line and you can hear that they're a bit but so they're playing like that, you can hear where they're going. So you should be listening to what they're doing so you can help them get that idea across so they can move on to their next idea. So it is just listening, I think.
Do you feel like it's you're very, I'm sure you are, but like very conscious of like the keys too, so you're not getting in each other's sonic way? Like, are you playing smaller voicings most of the time while you're
All the time,
comping?
yeah,
Hmm.
all the time. I'll split the guitar into low and high. So if I want something a bit, down and dirty, so that would be, if the bass is just like, so I can knit in with that, because the keys might be up in the higher register. If the keys were down in the sort of low, in the mids register, I would be sort of, I kind of, it's just because the instruments have each got their little EQ band to sit in, and I'm always listening for that. So especially in Jamiroquai, because it is a busy, there's a lot going on with horns and keys and BVs and percussion.
Hmm.
That's why the parts tend to be quite small.
Yeah. Now, when you're navigating that, so I find it very interesting to kind of work with like a one chord vamp, which it's like it's ultimately my favorite thing to do because
Yeah,
it's challenging. A lot of people think it's boring, but like John Scofield can take a one chord vamp and make it sound like an entire song.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you effectively do that? But like with you, with having to contend with like so much sonic,
yeah.
kind of landscape,
Mm.
I find it very interesting. Like how you're describing this is also kind of a matter of like what is in your in-ears on stage with that band? Like what's your mix like?
It's like the record. I have it mixed like the record. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
necessarily go for. I have everything in. Vocals maybe a little bit lower, but I have a good balance of where my guitar would sit against the bass and drums, and everything's there. Um, I don't go for a guitar heavy mix because if I go for a guitar heavy mix, it will make me play softer. No, it'll make me play harder.
Mm-hmm.
And if my guitar is too loud, yes, so that's what I meant. If my guitar is too loud, I'll play softer to make it sit in the mix. And if it's too soft, I'll play harder to make it sit in the mix. So I want it to just be right so I can play at the right intensity to get the sound I'm after. So, um, yeah, I'm looking for space to fit in, and I'm conscious, really conscious of being tight with the hi-hats.
Okay.
I listen to hats a lot. I've got Derek, who I played with for 25 years, the drummer. He's
Mm-hmm.
really good on hats, so I kind of try and dance around with his hats a
Mm-hmm.
bit, and we carve out little rhythms together. We don't know we're doing it, but it just becomes like, you know, uh, like a crochet of little dynamic pulses that happen. He's great at being really dynamic with his hat work. So even though he's playing 16s, it doesn't really feel like 16s because he's putting the accents in different places. So I like to knit in with that to make it create different rhythms rather than just a flat line of 16ths.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that's important to me. So
Okay.
that's what I'm listening to is a great balance of the drums and bass, so that it sounds like a rhythm section. And nothing's too loud. Um, and I want to sit in exactly as I would sit in as if I was listening to a recording. So I'm not too loud.
Okay. Man, that's so interesting. Like, well, with a band of that magnitude, and like, dude, I've never seen Jamiroquai live. It's like on my bucket list of bands that I've never seen, and like I don't know
Right.
how often you guys have coming over here,
Well,
but
we would come over more often, but your visa costs are so high.
I know I've heard
I was
Joey told me that too. Like Joey Landis was like, dude, it's so expensive to
I
tour in
was
the
asked to
U.S.
go and do the Corey and the Wong Notes. You know, the second series of Corey and the Wong Notes. He said, "Do you want to come and be the second guitar player?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh, that's killer,
I would have loved it because I love Corey, and I was like, "Wow!" And I'd never been to Nashville before, and they filmed it in Nashville. I was like, "Yeah!" It was just out of lockdown. I'm going to Nashville. I'm going to play with Corey and the band,
yeah.
and then I looked at the visa. It was like £8,000.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah.
Ah,
And
what is
then
up
he
with that?
asked me this year whether I'd be up to going to do the syncopated summer camp, and same thing. It was like 8 grand.
Dude, why are we making it so hard for cool like artists to come here? I don't
But
understand
that's
that.
just because it's a solo. It's me going over there. If it was a full band, obviously the thing gets reduced down. But if I'm going on my own, yeah, I was devastated to not be able to go to that. Yeah,
Man, that sucks. Yeah, you guys would. I mean, I thought about that today of just like how Corey's kind of continuing to carry the flag of this music in a way.
yeah,
But like there's all this great music that's happening that people, it's like the undercurrent of the mainstream in a
mm,
way. You know what I
mm,
mean? And I find
yeah,
that a lot of the times when I would run into other people who were Jamiroquai fans, I'd run into them at like jam band festivals and stuff,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Because of the I guess the sphere of that music is by and large improvisational, can be, you know.
yeah. Not with us, it's not though.
Well,
It's
it's a
not.
show, but
The
like I
show is no.
yeah.
The show is. I mean, sections are. So in the band, Jay, we have to watch Jay like a hawk because he changes quite. He wants to go to different sections when he wants to go. So
Mhm.
it's almost like that James Brown thing where there's a hand gesture and we have to then nip to the B section of the track, and we don't quite know. But the thing is, it's jam, but everyone we try to stay in our lane, so it doesn't ever get too far away from what the the riff is, the groove
Mhm.
is, because it can be chaotic if everyone's doing too much. So that's a thing that I quite like doing is staying with my part and just staying. I'm not. I always. I sort of thought about this thing, and I talk about it when I'm teaching sometimes. You know, when you go to jam nights, and every 4 bars the drummer will do a fill, and every 4 bars the bass player will do a little extra, and then the guitar player will add a little bit in. If everyone's doing that every 4 bars, it can
Right.
become chaotic. So
Mhm.
I always think of it as like it's a crossroads junction. Someone's going to go first. So having that hesitance and the and that your taste to go, I'm going to let everyone else do it,
Mhm.
and pick your moment to put your little extra bit in when you want to do it. It means you're actually having to be really patient and
Yes,
just
and
look
that's
in.
that's
Yeah.
what I think is so beautiful about you as a player. I feel like there's like this level of patience that comes with like musical maturity, obviously, when you kind of are coming up as a player.
Mm.
Because as guitarists, we kind of all want to be like, look at me, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, kind
yeah,
of thing.
yeah. Yeah.
But like to be able to like have the restraint to
Yeah.
sit in a pocket like
Yeah.
that, dude, that's harder than a lot of people understand.
Yeah.
Not from a sense of like I want to be flashy, but in the sense of serving the song.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to ask you next is like, okay, so when you're, it's different when you're just vamping and you're comping underneath of a soloist, right? But
Yeah.
like for writing parts for
Mm.
music, like understanding, okay, the drums and the bass are doing this, the keyboards are doing this, the horn section's doing this, like what inspires you to write parts that you might write to fit in,
To
you
fit
know,
in.
song? Yeah.
Um, if I'm ever lucky enough to have the vocal in a track, so there's a melody idea, I am looking for the space in the vocal, right? So if the so say for example, there's a song called Little L that we do, and in the studio, the track is a bass line, keyboard pads, a drum loop, and the vocal melody, which I don't think at the time he had the melody. So it was like, duh, 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 there you were freaking out. So when there's a break, I just do a. I'm looking for where there's a break,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't know where I picked it up, but I was like, if you get in the way of the vocal, that's going to be gone. They'll mute it. So if you're going to play something that's a statement, try and play it when there's not a vocal there. So that's one thing. And then I kind of learned about the knitting parts where you're sort of helping the groove, like you'd get your, you sort of don't stop till you get enough. So where the dead notes are just as important as the muted as the played notes. So
Yeah.
they're the knitting parts that help knit the hats together and become almost part of the percussion, part of the rhythm. So, but when you hear that part, they don't come off it. They play that part, and it stays that part. And because it's so simple and helps the track, that's why it's quite proud in the mix, So I'm always looking for that spot of where's there a bit of space? Do they need guitar on this? If I'm going to play something that I also learned the more simple the part is, the louder it'll be in the mix. If it's too complex, they'll turn it down and it's off.
Yeah, I mean, you're barely ever playing full bar chords, I'm sure, in that band.
No.
Like, it's not a thing that you need to be doing.
So there's a song, 7 Days in Sunny June, which is an acoustic song where I do get to play, which is on a. But in the chorus, I'm not playing acoustic guitar. I play that.
Yeah, man.
Just play a small, just little double stops, because they sit above where the keys are. Texturally, they sizzle through, and I'm looking for those sounds,
Yeah.
And that's just my version, how I do it. But I don't know. I probably got it just from listening to very simple,
Yeah, man.
Hi, I'll do that one. Can I do that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
It's the coolest parts ever.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, it's so underestimated how much impact stuff like that can have on a track.
Yeah.
And how good it makes it feel. Because what's cool about it too is like that 16th note grid, even though it's like almost clinical sometimes, like how like sterile it can feel for some people to play like that, it still feels like it swings real hard, even if it's straight 16ths. Like you have this thing about the way that you play that I love, and it's a feel thing. It's like it's like you have this swagger and this swing with this really tight staccato line. Even like tight staccato lines like that feel so good because like the swagger in your right hand. Like, where did your right hand stuff come from, do you feel like? Don't go there.
There's the joke. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in my head. No, it's just doing those gigs, What's important to me is, so I think, I don't know, just something I've made up in my head. I believe people understand rhythm more than they understand notes sometimes. So if something feels good, they can dance and they can tap their foot, right? Music comes from, the early stages of music was tribal drumming, which were hypnotic things that used to go on for hours, and people they were just dancing to tribal drums. That's what we have. That's back in our past. So this is the same thing. So when I'm doing I mean, I have this a lot in lessons, right? When people are asking, "Oh, my arm gets sore,"
Right.
right? I I can do this for hours without getting tired, right? And I think it's just loose,
Yeah.
really loose, a loose wrist.
Yeah.
But yeah, but also when I'm doing it, there's always there's a pulse in it, so you can hear where the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Yeah. Yeah, man. See, that's the thing. It's like it has this like bounce to it that feels like that's the swing part of it too.
Because I'm telling you where the bounce is.
Yeah.
You've got that. If you were to go to a bar full of drunk people and they turn the music off, right? Try it one day, and you just start clapping. Yeah, everybody. Everyone will join in with you, even though they don't know why they're doing it, right? If you went, someone would finish it off for you because they
Yeah.
understand the rhythm, and it must be it must be in our brains so like deep down that we have that. So when I'm playing, I want to see people nodding their head and tapping their feet, even if I'm playing two notes. I want it to be, I want it to be groovy, you know. So yeah, it's fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing sometimes are you doing hybrid picking too with your right hand, or you just all pick mostly?
I do a lot of yeah. So if I'm doing, you know, say I'm doing oh, I can't even think of a song. I do go between my thumb and my fingers a lot.
Okay.
For say if I'm just voicing out the chords, so my pick is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, this is just I didn't even realize this until the last few years. I've been using these really small jazz threes for about
Mm-hmm.
30 years, probably 20, 25, 30 years, probably 30 years. When I'm playing, I show about that much of the pick.
That's crazy, yeah.
And most of the sound that I'm getting is from my thumb and my finger. Um, so it's kind of a if I drop the pick,
It almost has the same feel, almost
yeah,
in a way. Yeah, it's just a little bit more trouble.
and I think that comes from me just wanting warm sound. You know, like you'd hear on the old George Benson records, like Phil Upchurch playing the rhythm guitar parts, or I just like that warmth. I don't
Yeah.
want it to cut through too much. Um, I don't use a compressor a lot of the time because I like the dynamic up and down of a compressor is just going to flatten out any dynamics that I have. So most of the time I don't have a compressor on. Um, yeah, and I kind of live on position 4 and 5, for
Okay.
when I'm doing that rhythm thing. So, but
Okay. I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah, it's interesting because people like Charlie Hunter, obviously
mm,
all hand, no pick kind of
oh,
thing.
he's incredible.
And he just has like, the warmth. Talk about warmth with
Yeah,
even with the guitar side of the instrument that he's playing, like there is this warmth to it. And dude, I took a lesson with him one time
yeah,
and I was playing something. He was like, "Well, play this or play something that you're comfortable with." And I played like one of my songs and I dropped my pick and then I picked the pick back up and he was like, "What happened there?" He's like, "It was way more interesting when you weren't using your pick. Why'd you
right,
start using the pick?"
yeah,
And it's true. There is like this, you play a little bit differently,
hmm,
but the notes have this roundness
yeah, yeah,
that like the attack of a pick, it makes up, and even the way, like you're saying, the way that you attack the string with the pick makes a
yeah, yeah.
huge difference, man.
There are so many sounds. Before you stomp on anything, there are so many sounds you can get just with the guitar
Yeah.
by using your thumb, your finger, playing near the bridge, playing near the neck. Before you hit any pedals, you've got a world of tones coming out,
Hmm.
which I love that.
Yeah.
I've got a
Well,
huge pedal board that hasn't been out of the bag for months. I barely touch it.
speaking of which, someone asked what your favorite fuzz pedal is. I know we talked about this a little bit last time you were on the show about fuzz.
Uh,
Have you
my
gotten deeper into fuzz since we last
no,
talked?
I have a Hartman fuzz that I had as a gift. I might have probably said this the last time. It's a Hartman fuzz. Um, it was I actually weirdly we got a I got sent a live Jamiroquai. We did a radio session back in 2006, and I used it. I was like, "What am I using on that? What's that?" And I had the fuzz on the board at the time,
Oh,
and I use it. It's on, and I use it on the neck pickup, and I turn the volume right down, and it really cleans up nicely. It gives you a real razor sharp clean with the fuzz, that Hartman fuzz. So, yeah, I don't use a lot. I don't use fuzz a lot. I use it on sessions when I'm going for a certain sound, but yeah, I don't have a fuzz on my board most of the time.
are you rolling with a lot of digital software now when you're on gigs because of like you can guarantee every night it's the same sound or?
Yeah, on tour I've been using on tour I used the Kemper for the last world tour we did, and then a couple of years ago I changed over to the Quad Cortex just because my thinking of it is you're going from a venue to venue. You want consistency. They want a quiet stage, um, and I personally think in a gig like this one, it sounds better
Mm-hmm.
than when I used to I had my divided by 13s and an old Marshall that I used to take around, and the mic placement would be different every night, and the voltage in the room would be not be the same, and the singer wants you to turn down, so an amp that's being starved of any juice.
Right.
So I just went go digital, and it works for me at the moment. In the studio, I use pretty much amps all the time. I'm using
Mm-hmm.
amps, um, but I will use whatever it takes to get the job done.
What
Because
model are you like going through like a super clean like Fendery type thing or?
I captured my divided by 13 FTR 37,
Oh,
and I
okay.
used that as the base of it. It's on, if anyone wants it, it's up on the Cortex Cloud. Um, but I just, I like the sounds I like, and I treat it as a bass amp. I have a few stomps in front of it, like a phaser or a tremolo if I need it, and then I always have a long reverb and a delay on expression pedals, so they're always on, and I can just feed it in when I want to swell, you know. Um, and then I might have something nutty for a lead sound if I need it. I think I've got a Bogner, or I actually have a capture of. I've got an old Super Champ, a Fender Super Champ, which I love.
Oh,
That's an amazing amp. Um, for that, it's just got perfect mid range that cuts through. Of course, I'd much rather have my amps on the road
hmm,
and an hour to sound check them, but it just doesn't work like that.
right. It seems like that's more an efficient way to kind of travel, and especially like you're saying, from night to night, you know. Because I mean, I've heard stories about Frank Zappa getting to rooms and like tuning to the room, you know,
Yeah,
all the gear. And I'm like, dude,
yeah,
that would take hours
yeah,
of like time to do that every time you're going into a new room.
yeah.
Um,
If it was my
yeah.
gig and I was doing my own music and it was guitar based, I'd take amps. But it's not my gig, and sometimes you don't get a sound check, you know.
Hmm.
So every night my rig sounds the same. What I like about the Quad Cortex though is that it feels much more tactile. It's because you can adjust on the floor. It feels like you've got a pedal board in front of you now. So it's getting better. I mean, when Mark Knopfler is choosing to use a Kemper rather than his own amps, and
Right.
people say it's the best he's ever sounded, you go, well, there's something. I had so many people going, oh, I'm never using that shit, and then eventually they call me up, Rob, can you give me some advice? Because
Yeah.
no one wants to be flying around with amps anymore. It's so expensive to fly around with your gear now, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I was doing a gig down the road in a bar, I'd take my deluxe or something. I'd rather have an amp there when it's not all going through a big system. But
Hmm.
yeah,
It's probably so nice
But
and
that's just
clean though too. Like especially when you're talking about like your mix, it's probably so much easier for your front of house people to get everything to sit just
yeah,
right, every night. So that makes
yeah.
sense.
It's dialed in, and I do one thing I do though is I always check what they're putting on it out front. I always
Right.
go, let me see, because I don't want them to compress it. I don't. I watch what they're doing EQ wise as well.
Yeah.
I'll always ask during the rehearsal process. I'll be like, I'll just have a go and a peek on their desk. Okay, yeah,
Dude, you know what? This is another good tangent with using in-ears and everything. I'm
mm.
gathering you guys are all in in-ears.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
For that band, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I just started using them about, I don't know, 6 months ago, something like that. Spent my whole career so far just on wedges and whatnot.
yeah, yeah,
And you know how a mic'd amp through in-ears is going to sound super tinny.
yeah,
Like I'm gathering that using the quad, you're getting exactly what you would get at home, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a huge
yeah,
advantage too, because like the
yeah, yeah,
the feel of playing is something that you're familiar with through that at home, and like getting on a
yeah.
big stage. Like, does it feel like super comfortable in that way?
Yeah, yeah, I've been doing it a long time with the band. We've always been on in-ears. Most bigger tours are on in-ears now, that I've done anyway.
Mhm.
Um, I tell you what did happen a couple of years ago, though. I play in the UK. There's a band called Brother Strut, which is a UK funk band. So I do that, and I was like, yeah, oh great, we're going to be playing some small venues up and down the country. I want to get my deluxe, I'm going to get my pedal board done. And then about a week before I went, what am I doing? I'm just asking for trouble. You know, I'm asking for trouble. So what I did was I took the quad cortex, and I have two Laney FR speakers, and I took them out. So I've got a stereo rig behind me. This wasn't an in-ears tour. It sounded incredible
Mhm.
because when I kick on a Dimension C chorus and I want that sort of 80s clean DI'd, that 80s sort of,
Oh, hell
you
yeah.
know, it is that. So
Mhm.
I captured a DI chain. So I've got, I use this guitar, single coil pickups, got myself like an SSL preamp in Universal Audio, got the cleans, you know, big, boosted the high end, scooped out a little bit of mid. So I'm using it like I would go and direct in the studio, and I captured that, and that's a DI sound that afterwards I put on a shitload of Dimension C chorus, which it has in here, it has in the quad cortex, and then I think I put a TC Electronics chorus in there on it as well to get that real Dan Huff stereo
Oh yeah.
chorus thing, and then through these FR speakers, it sounds incredible.
Mm.
And then when I kick back to my amp, it just sounds like my amp, like my FTR,
Right.
but controlled. But it's only for me monitoring on stage. The front of house gets that sound anyway. So
Mm.
it's just so good now.
Yeah, man. And
Uh,
for people that may not know, like FR, flat response, is
yeah,
really what that stands for. So like generally
yeah,
speaking, when you're using modeling software, you need that kind of a speaker.
yeah.
Um,
What helped me with that, because I did try out loads of FR cabs, and I realized that, and I tried really expensive atomic ones. I tried the Head Rush, which are a little bit more budget. I tried the Kemper ones. They all sounded completely different from each other, right?
mm,
But what this has got is it's got an overall EQ. The quad cortex has got an EQ, so you can EQ just like you would when you reach down and turn up the treble or turn down the bass on your amp. It does the same thing, so you can tune it to the room that you're in.
that's so
Um,
cool.
but yeah, but if you ask me, yeah, if I had a truck that carried around my gear and it all worked and was tip top, I'd much rather have my amps. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, I mean, it sounds great. I mean, every time I've heard clips of you playing on a stage, like, Jamiroquai or whatever you're playing, like, it always sounds awesome. So regardless of what you're using, it's working really
bless you.
well. Are you traveling with like two of those as a backup in case
Yeah,
one
yeah,
gets to bed?
yeah. I
Okay.
travel with two. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I swapped over to the quad, was because I was traveling with three Kempers. I had two in the truck, and I had one with me in my bag because it meant I could carry on doing sessions if I was away, and I could set up to do the old the hotel room studio.
Yeah,
But
man.
the Quad Cortex is great, and it's just getting really good. How it works, and I know that everyone's got that. There's the purists out there, and I totally agree with you. Yeah, that's what you'd want. Do it. Um, but this works for me. I'm not. I'm a guitar player in a band. I'm not the most important cog. I'm not the most important thing on the stage. And when you look at it nowadays, everything is DI'd, apart from the drums, which are usually behind a screen. The
Mhm.
bass is, even though they've got a cab on stage, it's DI'd. All the keyboards are DI'd. So the guitar, the effects translate better as well. If you're using
Mm.
a reverb, it's going down the XLR straight to the desk rather than going down an SM57.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
really hear the good quality of the reverbs.
Mm,
I don't work
man.
for Neural DSP. I'm not selling them. It's just my
Uh,
stance now, and I am likely to change at any point if something better comes along.
Man,
So,
I'll tell you, like I haven't played through one of those. I had a Kemper for a little bit, and I sold it because I found myself like I don't like see myself using this long term kind of thing. But this is like
right.
years ago, dude. Like I
Yeah.
bought that might have been 2015 or something that I had that. I mean,
Right.
it was a while ago. But it has come so far, and those floor models are so convenient, and
Yeah.
like it seems like they're so intuitive too,
Yeah.
from what I can tell, especially the
What is it
neural
you're
stuff.
using now? Is that a two rock behind you?
It is, yeah.
It is. I mean, they're amazing amps. They sound great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty lucky. I'm actually selling. I have two rock amps.
Right.
And I'm actually selling. Oh, what the hell? I hate those balloons. Apple. Um, but I'm actually selling. I have a Studio Signature that I bought in 2019,
Right.
and then I got the Bloomfield Drive just like 2 years ago or something like
Right.
that. And it feels like it's overkill to have two rock amps. So I'm gonna sell the Studio Signature to get some other
Yeah.
stuff that I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, that amp, dude, like I there's two channels on that amp.
Yeah.
The clean channel is just amazing, and then the lead channel is not like, it doesn't feel like a totally different amp. It's kind of like that thing where you're just like gain staging in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it has a cascading gain structure to it. So like
Hmm.
any amount of gain you put on the clean channel will dump into the overdrive channel.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Right.
depending on what kind of guitar you're using, it really speaks differently. Like if I'm
Yeah.
playing my 335 compared to my Strat, it's
Hmm.
going to react totally differently.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more lucky to have an amp like
They're
that.
amazing amps. I had a back when the first two rocks came out before Eli took over. Is it Eli? Is his
Yep,
name?
Eli
Eli.
and Mac. Yeah.
I had one of, I think it was the Custom 50 or something, and it was amazing. But I couldn't play it. I didn't play anywhere that would take the volume of me being able to turn it up loud enough.
I know.
Um,
This has an
you,
amazing master on it,
right.
and it's
Yeah.
switchable between 20 watts and 40 watts. But the
Do you have
40
any? Do you have any small amps? Is that a Morgan in the background as well, or?
no, that is an amp out of there's a company in Maine. You're talking about that one?
Yeah.
There's a company in Maine called Synaptic Amps,
Okay.
and he builds like class A type stuff that's almost like that amp is kind of like a Matchless and a Fender if they had a baby
Right.
kind of
Right.
thing. And that
Okay.
thing sounds great, but that doesn't have reverb on it. Whereas the Two Rock has
That's got
amazing tank on it.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's killer. But I mean, I would probably do bar gigs with a Neural if I had one, if I really
Yeah.
liked how it sounded, because the in-ear thing would be like so inspiring all night, you know?
Well, I mean, most of the gigs I do now, unless it's a bar gig, I turn up with my gig bag and the neural is in the front pocket. I put it on the floor. The guy hands me two XLRs. A lot of the time it's on in ears, but sometimes I've got a residency that I do in town in London, and I play there most Thursday nights. I've got a night off tonight actually, but um, I just have like a powered monitor in front of me,
Yeah,
and it sounds great.
that's
Sounds
awesome,
fine.
dude.
And I didn't want to like it. I didn't really he didn't, because I like amps, and if I'm in the studio, I want an amp. I did so on the last Jamiroquai album. We did we went to a studio called Air Studios, which is quite it's quite close to Abbey Road, and it's a beautiful studio. And we spent the whole morning, the engineer and I, a guy called Josh Blair, who's an incredible engineer. I had 3 amps in 3 different rooms. I had my divided by 13, my Princeton Reverb. I think it was my JRT 915 as well. I've got one of those. And we blended the amps. We had 2 or 3 mics on each cab. We spent the whole morning getting the compressor right, the 1176, everything summed in, blended, and then I recorded the part. 2 weeks later, we're in another studio, and Josh is listening to the track. He goes, "Oh man, that guitar sounds so good." I went, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, I'm glad we recorded it in that way." I said, "No, that's a different song. That was a Kemper. That's the Kemper." And this is an engineer who has worked with Nile Rodgers, Duran Duran, Mark Ronson. He
Yeah.
was like, "You're kidding me." I went, "Yeah." When you
Mm.
listen to these things on a track, you
You can't
can't
tell.
tell
Mm,
really. You
mm,
can't tell. You can if it's a Nora Jones track or a Brothers Landreth track, but you can't tell when it's in a dense pop funk thing.
mm-hmm. That's so
Um,
cool, man.
yeah, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dogs barking.
That's fine. I love dogs. Um, well, dude, I don't want to take up more of your time. Like, anything else? Like, what's coming up for you right now? I mean, are you doing more of like guitar break stuff and
I'm off
what's
to
happening?
Spain. I'm off to Spain next week. Teaching in Spain. Um, I am. What else am I doing? Working on a new Jamiroquai record.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we started a couple of months ago. It's slowly, but some good stuff happening.
Hell
It's
yeah,
early
dude.
days. Early days. Uh, just doing sessions. Teaching. I've actually started doing a bit of teaching at home, which I really enjoy,
Oh,
and
that's
doing
cool.
Zoom lessons. I'm really enjoying it. Um, I think I got burnt out teaching when I started out. I did so much of it. I did like 7 or 8 hours a day teaching,
Oh, yeah.
and but I'm enjoying it. It's great. It's
That's good.
nice.
Well, hit up Rob. Where can they find that if they
Ah,
want to take a lesson
oh,
with you?
just drop me a line on Instagram or drop me a line on my YouTube channel, Rob Harris Guitar, I think it is.
Okay, cool.
Um, but it's
Nice.
great. How's it been going? I mean, been seeing things that you've been doing. How's it been going? This online stuff is it's crazy times, isn't it? For
It is. I
online.
mean, I'm not making money doing any of this stuff, but but I'm
We
still
we
having
don't
fun.
do this for money.
That's
We
why I
don't
have
do
a
this
day
for
job.
money. Yeah.
No, I mean, I've been having a good time doing this, man. I mean, this is the second to last episode this season. I'm about 190 episodes into this, man.
Naked.
And
Hmm.
I'm still doing the gear demo stuff. I really want to get in the shed, man, and start working on some stuff because I'm hitting a point guitar playing wise right now where I'm noticing things that I'm like, oh man, like you've been doing that for 20 years. Stop doing that.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and there's a little bit more of the fretboard that I feel like I haven't taken the time to explore.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and just certain things. I took a lesson a couple weeks ago with Murray Pulver from Brothers Landreth,
Oh, okay.
and we were just talking about like simple stuff, dude. Like, you know, when you're starting a solo, like start in a weird spot, like start on
Yeah.
the 9.
Yeah.
Don't start on the root, don't start on the third, don't start on the 5. Like start on the flat 2, you
Yeah.
know? Like there's
Yeah.
all these different ways and to create vibes in music. So it's like I'm starting to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable because like you know how it is, dude. Like if you're playing in a bar, I'm a
Hmm.
huge Wayne Krantz head. If I start
Oh.
doing Wayne shit in a bar,
Yeah. Yeah.
people are gonna be like, "What are you doing? No, thank
I
you. You're
know.
not hired again." You know
I
what I
know.
mean? So I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable of like, well, I can go there a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I have to softball stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't though. You don't, you
No.
know. I'm
No.
45 years old, dude. Like I don't have to keep doing that. You know what I mean?
No. You
So,
play for yourself. That's the thing. It's yeah. I I've been trying to rely on this a bit more than these. So if
oh,
I'm kind of trying to hear before I play a note, what can I hear?
Yes, that's also what Murray and I talked about a
Yeah,
lot. Like,
yeah,
just, like, try to, like, sing the note before you play it type thing,
yeah, yeah,
that kind of vibe. But,
yeah,
so I don't
yeah.
know, man, things are going good. I've been looking forward to the summer, and I mean, anytime I get to hang out with folks like you, just, like, to
Mm,
hear the way that your brain does work with this stuff, I think it's helpful for all of us to know that
mm.
we all have a path.
Yeah,
Like, you got to where you are now because of things you were exposed to and things that
yeah,
hear in your head, and I think
mm,
it's cool to talk about this stuff because
yeah.
rhythm
Because you
guitar is
don't.
awesome.
Yeah, the guitar's amazing, but you don't need to know everything. You just
Mhm.
need to know what you want to know. I saw a great thing with Tom Bukovac, and who absolutely adore. Like I mean, I remember seeing one of the very first videos he did, which was probably it was him just jamming in his garage, and I was like, wow, that guy has got music seeping out of his pores.
Yeah.
But he did some video and he was going, oh, here's a little trick, and he sort of explained it in a way. This chord is right here underneath this chord, and some guy was like, oh, you're just talking about the Cage chord system. He's
Mm.
like, well, is it okay? Is it the Cage chord system? But he's like, I'm still discovering this stuff. You
Yeah, me
know,
too, man.
you'll never get to the end of it. So just enjoy it, and you know, you can hear people play, as you said, you can hear John Scofield play for hours on one chord vamps and make something new up all the time,
Mhm.
or you can just hear a guy playing one note and just grooving away.
Mhm.
I love all of it. It's all great stuff. So
Have you
yeah,
heard of this guy Ryan Scott?
Ryan Scott. No, who is he?
I think you would like it. I'll send you a record today of something that
Oh,
I think you
wicked.
should check out. He's like a Brooklyn-based dude, but he for a long time I think he was in Nashville, but he has a very interesting voice on the instrument.
Okay, I'd
But
like
it's
to hear that.
funky,
Yeah.
it's, like, super, like, slinky. It's
Okay.
something I think you would really dig it too. I'll send you
Yeah.
something later. Oh, and the
I'll
last
check.
thing, I wanna do our lightning round get down real quick, but
Cool.
last time you were on the show, I was telling you about how I was looking for a P90 guitar, and you were like,
Yes.
"Mark, you should check out the Yamaha RevStar." And so it's been 3 years, and that kind of the P90 thing kinda went away, but right now that's why I'm selling the 2-Rock and stuff is I wanna
Okay.
get a couple things.
Yeah.
And I finally played a RevStar
Yeah.
yesterday. Now it didn't have P90s, it had humbuckers, and that's not what I
Right.
want. But
Right.
you were right, that guitar feels really good.
Really cool guitar.
Really
Yeah.
great guitar for the
Yeah.
money. I was like,
Yeah.
this is like one of those $600, $800 ones.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this thing is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
And
mean,
it,
people
and
should check that out.
yeah, they're great guitars. There's so
Yeah,
many great guitars out there now.
yeah, it
I
is.
I must admit, hearing you talking about Two Rock, I've been going because a couple of my friends have just been buying them here, and I have been going, oh, shall I try one? Shall I
Yeah.
get one?
Dude, the vintage
Yeah.
deluxe amp that looks like something that you would be right up your alley. That new
Yeah.
one.
Right.
That's that one's awesome. But
Oh,
I can also see you playing the custom reverb, you know, general.
I did a clinic over in Holland a couple of weeks ago, and they had a company called Van Leek, and
Mm,
it's a Dumble type amp, and it blew my head off. It was amazing.
yeah.
It was so good. But then the guy's like, oh, he said, are you interested in buying one? I went, how much are they? He was like, they're 7 grand. I was like, I'm just not going to. I'll use it,
Right.
but I'm not going to take it out of the house. It's
Yeah. One more
but
grand and you can come hang with Corey Wong. Why would you do that?
exactly, and bring my quad cortex. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh, good. All right, let's do this 'cause I don't want to hold you up all day. I got
All right.
a different type of lightning round
Oh
get down
shit.
for you because you've already done it. So,
Okay,
all right, you know the drill. You've done this before.
go for
Steely Dan or the Doobie Brothers?
it. Steely Dan.
James Taylor or Bob Dylan?
Oh, James Taylor.
Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse?
Janis Joplin.
Elvis or Tom Jones?
Elvis.
Lettuce or Scary Pockets?
Lettuce.
Fiona Apple, Tori Amos.
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, yeah, Fiona Apple.
Abbey Road or Revolver?
Abbey Road.
James Gadsden or Bernard Purdy?
Oh, James Gatton.
Okay.
That's a good one. Jeez, Mark.
James Jamerson or Willie Weeks?
Oh, that's not fair. Willie Weeks.
Yeah, man, that Donny Hathaway live record, it's hard to beat that, dude. Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the last one. Where were you the first time you heard Bohemian Rhapsody?
Oh, do you know what? I can't. I have no idea. Oh, I don't know. I can imagine it when it was in my very young childhood with my parents playing it on Top of the Pops.
Okay,
I
okay.
can, yeah, I can remember my dad used to do this thing where he had Top of the Pops on, and because we were broke back then, he used to get his tape recorder and put a tape machine
Against
with a
the
microphone in front of the telly to tape the songs.
Okay.
So it was probably then, I
Okay.
think.
Man, I find that to be such an interesting question because when you think about that song in general, man, it's such an iconic thing and it'll be an iconic thing for the rest of
Yeah,
humanity.
yeah,
And I was exposed to it through Wayne's World. You
yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean?
That's yeah, yeah,
Of all the
yeah,
places for a young kid to hear that song for the first time, but
yeah,
man, it's so
yeah.
cool.
It's incredible, and he was. Have you heard the like the acapellas of those tracks? Some of them.
No,
There's some acapellas. Freddie. It's not that song in particular, but I think it's "Someone
just
to
like
Love."
isolated vocal tracks. I've heard Killer Queen. I've heard stuff
Right.
from that,
Yeah.
but not Bohemian Rhapsody. But it's
You know
crazy.
what? People, this is a bit of a rant. I'm going to go on a quick rant before you can kick me off.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I miss is people being good and not looking like a deer in the headlights.
Mm.
They've got their in-ears in now and they're looking. I saw one artist, my son who's a musician, right? He's a singer-songwriter, and he came over. He's like, "Dad, look at this session. It's I'm not going to say who it was, but because I don't want to,
Sure.
but he was like, look at this session. It's a live session in the studio. And this artist is singing a Joni Mitchell song. And he looks absolutely petrified. And he's got his in-ears in. He's got his hand on his ears. And I'm like, yeah, he looks like he's singing in tune. But he's scared shitless that he's going to make a mistake. Whereas you watch an old bit of footage with Sammy Davis Jr. with a band behind him, with not even a microphone in front of him, the mic's on the floor, and he's dancing, singing, telling jokes.
Right.
I just miss people being,
Artists.
excuse my French, but be fucking good.
Right.
Be good. Don't be confident and be good. When you hear Freddie sing, he was just amazing.
Yeah.
Without the technology.
Yeah.
I miss it.
I know. It's interesting when you hear that's like when I go into the studio too, man. Like I carry that torch because I'm like, I don't want to be too overly critical of every little nuance,
No.
even though we do it anyway. We get,
Yeah.
super Pro Tool-y on stuff. But ultimately, if you don't show up and you can't nail the tune, like, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
you wrote it, man. Like, get it right, right?
Yeah.
But
Be good. And
yeah.
I remember hearing someone go, "Oh, I heard so and so. I heard Paul McCartney singing at this event, and he sounded terrible." Yeah, but he was singing. You're allowed to have a bad day.
Yeah.
Stop relying on someone pushing the fader up on your vocals so you can do the show anyway.
And that dude
Everyone-
is 84
Yeah.
now, and I'm like, I saw him a couple summers ago, and he sounded awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, he's still doing it. I mean, that's the thing. Like Eddie Vedder,
Yeah.
there's some songs that he can't sing like he used to,
Uh-huh.
where you can hear him live when
Yeah.
he like speaks it
Yeah.
or gives it to the audience or whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm okay with that. Like, dude is almost 60 years old. He's
Yeah.
think about how long that dude's been screaming and singing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but
Just
yeah,
be good and be, you can tell when there's an artist that's you go, yeah, that they're delivering. I watched it. There's a young another thing, right? Oh, sorry. Oh,
it's okay.
ranting. This is me being a 52-year-old man ranting, right? But I watched a thing, and it was a girl group here that we have, and I won't say the name. They were on a Sunday morning TV show, right? They're doing their new single, but it's the piano version, and there's a guy with a piano. He's been hired in to play the song. They're singing. They've all got their in-ears in, and they're singing the song, and then they're harmonizing. And then afterwards, they all kind of look at each other like we did it. You're
Right,
supposed to fucking do it. That's what
right,
you're supposed to do. Why have you got in-ears in? There's only a piano. It's right next to you.
right,
Why are you having to rely on your in-ears?
right.
That's what you do. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right, man.
Sorry.
No, I mean it's the age old thing, like Ray Charles, and like you watch old footage of that dude, or Bill Withers is another
Bill
great
Withers.
example. It's ridiculous, man. Those musicians,
Yeah.
they were musicians.
Well, they just, whether Bruce Springsteen, whether he's got the most amazing voice or not, he's still doing it, 100% doing it. I'm lucky I work with an artist who still does it. The last year we did some gigs last year, he sounded better than I've heard him ever
Oh
in the
man.
last year. And I'm like, it makes me proud that I actually get to work with someone who will not go out and mime.
Hmm.
Fuck that, I'm not doing that. The amount of kickoffs where they said, oh, but you've got to mime it on it, it's like, I don't really want to do it unless I'm singing.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
yeah.
always been one of like the premier voices, and especially in that arena of that kind of music. It's just like that Stevie Wonder type thing,
Yeah,
that's just like untouchable.
yeah.
But man, it
Well,
must be so fun to be on a stage with that caliber of musicians. And
oh, I'm so lucky. I'm so
yeah,
lucky to
it,
be able to play with these guys and girls that I play with. I'm absolutely blessed to do that, and I forget it sometimes, but
I know you don't
yeah,
take it for granted, because
no,
that's not the kind of guy you are. So,
no,
but man,
no.
well,
I'm
Rob,
really lucky, but it's Mark.
it's
Great to see you.
so nice to talk to you and see you again, buddy. And yeah, I mean, if there's ever anything else that you'd want to promote, you always can come back here and talk about it, and definitely hit Rob up about lessons. He's an
Yeah, drop
amazing
me a line.
teacher, great player. Do that. BV, thank you for moderating the chat. Everybody, thank you for coming out on an early Thursday morning. Have an awesome night off, Rob.
Yeah.
But thanks again, buddy. I really appreciate you.
Great to see you.
Vinyl is spun. Side B is done, ladies and gentlemen. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other.
Bye.
See you next time.